The outcome of the consultation on the taxation of relevant property for inheritance tax has yielded draft legislation that is much less onerous than many of us thought we would get. Basically, the principle whereby trusts established even by the same set law on separate days, the so-called Rysaffe principle, are not related, remains absolutely good law. So what does that mean? Does it mean all multiple trust strategies are still perfectly able to be accessed? Well, pretty much yes. There is an exception though, and this legislation tells us what that is. First, the legislation actually doesn't change really the way in which we calculate the tax on relevant property, the periodic charge and the exit charge, with one exception. And that exception is where there are same-day additions. So what does this mean? It means what the government are targeting now with this new legislation is the principle whereby individuals would set up a number of so-called pilot trusts, small trusts with small amounts of money in them. Actually, the trust didn't have to be that small. They had small amounts of money in them during their lifetime on separate days. On death, an amount of money, funds, assets would be transferred into those trusts. Now, this wasn't planning to minimise the tax on death, but it was looking ahead to minimise the tax, or in fact avoid the tax altogether, on the periodic charge and the exit charge. So on death, the money would flow from your will into these trusts that were established during your lifetime on separate days. Each of those trusts, because they were established on a separate day, had its own nil rate band, and therefore the chances of having a periodic or an exit charge were dramatically minimised. So this is what the legislation targets. Where there is a same day addition, that same day being your death, where the money comes from your will, to trusts established by the deceased person during their lifetime, then broadly speaking, in calculating the periodic charge or the exit charge for those properties, you would need to, those trusts, you would need to add together all of the trust property from all of those trusts established by the same set law that had a same day addition made to them. This would mean that you would really destroy the multiple nil rate band benefit for those trusts, but those trusts only. Where it leaves us is that we can still use a multiple trust strategy for loan trusts. Basically, these multiple trust strategies work really well where you have very low or no value initial property. So a loan trust has no initial value because there's no gift made, it's just a loan. So a series of those with the anticipation that they may grow to be more than the nil rate band, so you fragment them, perfectly fine, because they won't have provided they don't have same day additions made to them, which would be very easy to make sure they don't, a series of discounted gift trusts, a series of individual gift trusts with low value property, all can continue to work. And perhaps most relevantly for your clients is where you have large sum assured life assurances that are going to be placed in trust. They are specifically excluded from same day additions, even if you contributed to them by way of premium on the same day. Life assurance trusts are specifically excluded from these provisions, the anti-avoidance provisions, the new ones, so that having a series of life assurance trusts established on separate days would ensure that each of those trusts has its own nil rate band, and you would avoid pretty much forever the likelihood of having a nil rate band charge if you do things properly, if you fragment into enough trusts. It's worth the effort, I can tell you, with big enough sums assured.